Thank you. I'm now calling the Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to order. Time is 7:02 p.m. Please note we're conducting a hybrid meeting, which allows staff and members of the public to attend this meeting via virtual teleconference. In the event there are technical problems that prevent remote public participation, I had the discretion to continue this meeting without remote public participation, provided that no board members participating in the media via teleconference, which is the case tonight. No one is. The hybrid meeting will be video recorded and posted on our website. Because we are video conferencing, we will follow a strict protocol for the benefit of the recording. I will indicate when commissioners, staff, presenters, and the public will provide comments. And if you've called into the meeting and are not using a webcam, please state your name prior to providing your comment. If you're making public comments or have questions of the presenter or the commission, please address your questions to me, the board president. I will either respond or seek a response or hold the question for a future response. Please practice considerate video conferencing etiquette by muting your line when you're not speaking and limiting distracted behavior on camera. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct a roll call.
Okay. Commissioners, I will be conducting all roll call this evening in the same order. Please remember the order so that you are prepared to provide your comment or vote. President Spreen.
Here.
Okay. Vice President McDonald. Commissioner Basigi.
Here.
Commissioner Kadambi. Okay. Commissioner Tonka. Here. Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
Commissioner Warren.
Here.
Okay, and 6 commissioners are present. For the benefit of the recording, I will also conduct a presenters, consultants, and staff roll call. Santa Clara County Fire Department Fire Chief Kirk Howe is here. That would probably be the reason that no one's answering. Okay.
Yes, there was no sound. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's
Okay. All right. So, okay, the program's planning grants manager Woods is here. And I'm sorry, I said here for you, Eugenia. Project operations manager Russell is in the back. Field manager Harmon. Okay, technical data analyst Martinez.
Present.
Community event specialist Sachdeva.
Present.
Administrative specialist Revlar.
Present.
Project manager risk reduction King Rob.
Here.
Okay. Finance IT manager Moriali.
Present.
General manager Logan.
Present.
Okay. Deputy county counsel Forbat.
Present.
Okay, and the presenters, consultants, and staff are accounted for.
Thank you, District Clerk Vargas. Now moving on to item 2, my remarks. First, I'd like to announce that as a courtesy, any members of the public having objections to the proposed abatement of hazardous weed, brush, and/or rubbish on their property are being given a special opportunity to discuss their situation with Santa Clara County Fire Department and Fire Prevention Assistant Chief Estrada and Assistant Fire Chief Marshall Fox in the separate break room in the back before providing public testimony under agenda item 6B. Are there any members of the public present who would like to speak to them who don't realize that they can get a lead on that meeting?
Yeah.
Seeing no one here.
And no one online.
Great. Moving on. One more thing. I just want to say that the past few meetings have sort of been focused on specific major topics of interest. Tonight's a little different. It's full of many varied, different, and significant items. I'll try to keep things moving along quickly, but commissioners, please don't let me rush past anything that's deserving of deep content, because these are some very interesting strategic and operational items coming up. But there are a lot of them, so we'll plow on through. Moving on to item 3, public comment. Persons wishing to address the commission on any subject not on the agenda may do so now. Please note, however, the commission is not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on items not on the agenda. Items may be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on the next available agenda. District policy is to limit public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker, unless the number of speakers requires me to impose shorter time limits, which I don't think will be the case. Do you have any public comments on items not on the agenda? Seeing none here.
And I see none online.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, agenda amendments and changes. Are there any comments from staff on this? Any need to change agenda order or items? Seeing none. Any commissioners? I mean, which changes? Okay. In that case, there are no proposed changes. Let's move on to item 5, the consent calendar. I will point out that tonight's consent calendar is largely all reports, no contracts or other items of sort of strategic discussion there. For anyone listening who asks what the fire district does for the residents of the district, this should be your place to start. All these reports. There's just look at what's going on, and especially the community education, risk reduction, the HIZ assessments, volunteer programs, chipping program, evacuation route projects. It just goes on. So the answer to that question of what are we doing is so many things, and they're all in those reports. So please go there, download the items, take a look at those reports. They're really interesting, but we just don't have the extra hours tonight to go through them. But I know residents and anyone involved with the neighborhoods and the residents should really enjoy those presentations. Okay, are there any, let's see, comments from staff on the consent items?
None.
So, any questions from commission on the items? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Will the commissioner making the motion and the commissioner seconding, please state your names?
Warren moves to adopt item 5 as stated.
Tyson, I'll second.
It's your birthday. I'll let you, George.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll be looking to him a lot tonight. All right. Okay, let's see. In that case, any public comments on these items? Seeing none,
Yeah,
let's
there's
move to a
none
vote.
Online. Okay. President Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi,
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi, Commissioner Tonka, Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Okay, and the motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6, which has multiple parts. Item 6A is a presentation on our outreach efforts to residents who are on the WUI weed abatement non-compliant list. Project Operations Manager Russell will be providing us a report.
Excellent. Corey, can I just wait for the slides? So this evening, the purpose of this evening is to talk about our collaboration efforts with Santa Clara County Fire Department, as well as Santa Clara County Weed Abatement, the program there. We've had just great efforts with our collaboration, continued collaboration. We've met on the weekly with Santa Clara County Fire Department, and we discussed just how we can align our efforts and to both reach residents through our HIZ program, but also through the enforcement program of the Santa Clara County Fire Department, their WUI inspections. So twofold. Tonight, we want to always just review as well this process because it always gets confusing. So I would say there's a lot of text on the slides, President Spreen, but you can just disregard those. You don't have to read that. That's mostly for the public. So next slide, please. So as I think one of the things that makes this confusing is the number of agencies that we work with. So we work with Santa Clara County Fire Department. They conduct WUI inspections in the designated hazard areas. And they do those every 3 years. They do an inspection in person, and it is defensible space. So it's 30 feet, typically 30 feet from the main home, branches overhanging, access, things like that, very high level. Our residents are required that are in those zones. They are required to be compliant by May 31st. And then after that, then they are put on a list of non-compliant. And that was the list that was presented last month. You had 51 properties that were on that list presented to you last month. The idea being the Santa Clara County Fire Department was very proactively working on re-inspecting properties and letting them know. And I'm going to let Chief Estrada and Chief Brad Fox speak to you about the efforts and all those steps in that process. So last month it was 51. the list that was sent to you today has 8 properties on that. So they brought all those properties into compliance since that time. So that's great. Santa Clara County weed abatement, as you know, all properties are required to adhere to the weed abatement requirements. And it's a little bit different in that it's the, with the large properties, it's the perimeter of those properties as well as the perimeter of the home. So slightly different requirements, and weed abatement will go out and they will do those inspections. They also run the weed abatement program, the people that are non-compliant and are added to that list through the process that we go through annually. So that is the next slide, if I may. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we've been very collaborative with Santa Clara County Fire Department. And as I mentioned, the 51 properties were presented to you in May, March, April, May, June. Yeah, May, in May. And then we met with Santa Clara County Fire Department and asked if we could collaborate on a letter that we could send out to those 51 residents just to add more communication. And basically that letter let them know they were on the list. That we were notified that they were not compliant on that first inspection. And it also lets them know about this meeting, the hearing. It also educated them on all of the resources that we have and all the contact information. So contact Santa Clara County Fire Department, get a reinspection. And these are all of the programs that we provide to help you with your compliance. So by the time it was finalized in June, the non-compliant properties had already dropped to 25. So 25 residents received the letter from us, from Los Altos Hills. Next, please. And you do have the letter, an example of the letter in your packet. So this is our diagram that shows our very convoluted process here. And as you can see, we're down in the June meeting. So this list will be provided from Santa Clara County tonight. Residents are given the opportunity to come and contest their inclusion on this list. And so far we have not received any, we haven't had anyone come back and speak with us so far. Okay, next slide, please. All right, and so with that, I would like to present Chief Estrada, Deputy Chief Estrada, and he's going to talk about their process.
Thanks, Paige. I don't speak very loudly very often, so if you'd like me to speak up a little bit more, just do this, and I will kick it up a notch. So I want to say thank you for the opportunity to offer the information for clarity's sake to you, because this is probably one of the most important things that this group takes on every single year, and weeds grow back. So this is something that has to be done every single year. We have to stay on top of it, and every year we get a little bit better. So with that, I will be available with the rest of the staff to answer questions afterwards. And I would say that if it seems a little unclear as far as what the process is, I have been running it for 3.5 years, and I can say I think I get it now. So you're in good company. The fact is, a lot of the same words, same concepts. You've got weeds, you've got vegetation, you've got compliance, you've got inspections, and everybody uses the same language. So it's really easy to try to figure out why people are not understanding who's doing what. We also are kind of called the same things. So fire districts, weed abatement. So with that, there are no bad questions. So I'd be happy to try to clear that up. So our process essentially it really starts in the fall. So after the season, we do an after action. We come in and we like to figure out what we can do to iterate and become better and more clear. After last year, we realized that there were some issues with contact, communication, clarity, a few other things that actually came from this forum. So we worked with staff to really focus on that, to make sure that what we were going to do is have a better, more clear process that was much more predictable. And then actually, quite honestly, the hope was it'd be easier for you tonight. So with that, we conduct inspections. They're based on an initial letter that goes out in February. We always target mid-February, Valentine's Day. easy to remember. So this letter includes all of the things that we are looking for, that we are going to be enforcing. And essentially it's an A through F thing that is listed on some of the more common things that you're looking for clearance around the home, vegetation encroaching or getting too close to chimneys, dead or dying materials on the ground. These are all very common things. So these are essentially the core of what we are looking for that we enforce. In addition to that, there's supplemental educational things that would go into home hardening. So type of vents or things like that. Those are offered as additional information. And then we have incorporated QR codes so that there's public information that actually would allow them to go online to our websites to get more information. So the whole goal here isn't just compliance, it's really education. And so this year we went through and we had our weekly meetings. We really focused on how to make this a really successful season. In our inspections are first conducted by engine companies. We are on a triennial cycle. So the entire inventory is a third of it is inspected every single year. So we have had inspections. Everybody's been inspected. Every parcel's been inspected. The qualifying factor is that there has to be a structure on it. So county weed abatement will take care of parcels that do not have it. So there is a home for just about every parcel when it comes to compliance and what types of vegetation issues that need to be handled. So our engine companies go out, they do a right-of-way inspection. This is a visual inspection without being too intrusive, going out there and going onto people's properties. It's basically the same type of thing that you would use as a standard for code enforcement. So anything that you see, those are the things that are actually easier to see from those A through F components. We're actually looking for the presence of some kind of very obvious hazard or condition that exists. That creates the trigger or the opportunity for it to get referred to our staff in fire prevention. So we use a field capture tool that basically works from an iPad. It documents all of the different areas of concern that might be found. There's an opportunity to take a photo, put that into the database, and from there, it actually generates the violation notice with all of the parcel information. So every single inspection there's a one-to-one match with every single parcel. And that comes through the tool and basically creates an actual notice for the property owner that's on record. Our staff receives that the following morning and they send out the physical letter. They document sending it out and then it gets scheduled automatically within a 2-week period. So no less than 2 weeks so that the letter can actually get there. There could be some kind of action. And on that letter, the violation notice, they have an opportunity to get a hold of us for help. So we offer that in addition to more information. At that point, we're just looking for people to contact us and ask us for help, and we will send people out. If we don't get any type of engagement that's initiated by the property owner, we go out and send a deputy fire marshal out there to do a more comprehensive inspection, make contact. Every single property on this list, except for one, received 3 physical inspections this year around. So we really push the engine companies to look for specific things. And we asked them to do it very early in the cycle so that we had plenty of time to follow up. And at this point, we have documentation for every single site inspection, every single letter or correspondence that went out. In addition to that, at the time of the actual inspection, we put door hangers out there too. We don't really count those as a legal notice. It's the U.S. Postal Service that is actually the legal and verified service that we use in order to prove that notice was provided. So coming here and supporting with the fire district is actually a great opportunity to figure out how are we getting better at this. I feel very confident tonight that what we're putting in front of you is a very accurate representation of what occurred on these parcels. The only way, well, there's really only 2 ways that you can actually end up on this list. Not contact us at all or refuse to do the work. That's it. Everyone else who's engaged and is staying engaged is in the process and they're making improvement. Because once again, the goal is education and basically improve safety. So with that, I'd be very happy to answer any questions. It was an absolute pleasure this year to make a program that I'm actually very proud of.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to appreciate.
Use the mic so it gets recorded. Yeah.
Sorry. First of all, I want to really appreciate the work you're doing because I'm a resident in addition being a commissioner. And every bit of the work that you just described really goes toward the safety of my home and my neighbors and my neighborhood, the pocket that I live in. So, but I'm one of those people that always don't seem to understand the whole picture. So this is a good opportunity to try to get some clarity. And the question number one I have is that how thoroughly do you inspect the home? Do you just do a windshield look at the property initially, or do you actually get closer and look inside, for example, dead and dying trees, for the HIC violations, for lack of a better word? How close do you get to actually doing a complete inspection?
Great question. The answer is actually both. We do have an opportunity because there are more than one inspection. We're looking for that presence of what is very clearly a hazardous situation or violation. A lot of the stuff that you see in the intermediate zone, or what has now become the zone 0 or even the zone 1 that's coming up next year, are the things that we're looking for. They're very obvious. So tree encroachment, the sides of the mesh on your chimney flue, which is hard to see, but we do have optics on the rig. So anything that you can see without actually going too far out on a person's property. So usually it's 30 feet or so, and you can actually see them. So even people with gates, you can tell that they have vegetation or some kind of encroachment within the first 5 feet, or they have something actually touching the roof. So those are the ones that are easier to tell. So what we do is we look at those things that are very obvious, because the presence of those types of things means that there's probably other things that need to be addressed as well. And they're pretty easy to provide guidance for. And then when our DFMs go out, so the engine companies do the first windshield type inspections or public right-of-way inspections. We do actually expect them to get out of the rig. And I think that I was able to, when I was driving around, I was able to, I won't say caught, but I went out there and I witnessed a couple of crews out there, and they were out there on foot and they were walking the street. They left the rig down the street and they walked an entire cul-de-sac. So they were doing it, in my opinion, the right way. And they actually, some of them made it to the list because it happened to be in Los Altos Hills that happened. So yeah, there's an opportunity at that point to get more, a more detailed look that actually goes in, and that's where the approach of the education piece comes in. And we have walkthrough on the re-inspections because our DFMs are instructed to try to make an appointment and make sure that there is actually somebody there to receive them. Only in the event that we can't make contact will they go out, and they'll always knock on the door and they'll try to make sure that we have some kind of contact.
I have two more questions, if I
Please.
may. Can I
Please.
ask those questions?
Of course. Yes.
Thank you. The second question, you mentioned the 3-year period, and one third of the town gets inspected every third year. And the violators, do they remain of one pocket? Do you remain on the list of the following year and the following year after that?
I believe you're asking a question that bridges both sides. So if you're on our list, what we do every year as we get ready, so in that fall prep period, we start figuring out, okay, who went through and has now been offered to the county for abatement. So we work very closely with county weed abatement as we start generating our mail list. So one of the first early steps in our process, we pull our data, we ask for anything that's on the list, and then we exclude it from ours. So they get pulled out. They have to be on, they are on that list for 3 years, and they must be there for 3 years consecutively successful. And at that point, they can get off the list and go back into just the general pool. We will break ours up into 3 zones, and then we spread those out throughout the year. So the philosophy behind that is that those larger vegetation sources like trees, they don't need to be pruned every year. Once you cut back a tree, that's good for quite a long time. So we will get back to those things. And we look very close to the structure and start moving ourselves out. So we're looking for dead and dying material. So as long as it's green and it's basically not too close to the home, that's buying you a little bit of time. And that's essentially part of the philosophy on how we how we approach these.
This was very clarifying because it's 3-year window. It seems to be the common language between the two different bodies,
Mhm.
and it more or less creates some amount of confusion for people who are not really with their finger on the pulse. This third question I have, if I may ask again,
Please.
how close is your process to other municipalities or communities around the state? Like, for example, Truckee or Berkeley or whatever.
Well, so we actually do something that not a lot of people do. We have inspections. The closest probably would be the LE 100 type of inspection that you get from CAL FIRE. Ours has been brought pretty closely into alignment with that. And when it comes down to it, we kind of work from the same body of the regulations and standards that we're working from, because essentially they're created by forestry. So we're working with the same seminal documents and the same standards. And so we basically use inspection practices that we have adopted throughout the state. And those are basically industry best practices that you would see for a business inspection, the structure of it, how you document it, the timeframes. It's the exact same as any other inspection. It just happens to be a different type, just as if I was looking for an underground tank, or if I was there looking at your business, your restaurant. I would be working from a checklist. The standard, the process, and the way that we go, and the rules are the same. So effectively, it essentially is just an inspection with the same methodology. It just happens to have a specialized tool and a different set of parameters that we're looking for.
Thank you very much. So very clarifying. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Please, Kavita.
So I have a couple of questions. So how does this process work in terms of noticing? Do you just show up? Because a large majority of homes in our town are gated. What happens if the resident is not home? Do they get advance notice? I'm unclear about how the process works.
So great question. The answer is no. Our first inspection is done by the engine companies. They do it as they can, just like a business inspection. It's one of those things that you get out there, the initial inspection happens, and those are the things that's why it's a public right-of-way inspection. The presence of trees or other types of things can be determined from that place. When the notice gets generated, because you're not home, doesn't mean that we're going to have the opportunity to push back an inspection, but it's not a very invasive, or we're not going onto the property. We're not going and looking over fences and doing things like that. So what it's looking for is the presence of those types of things that are actually on the list that need to be mitigated. At that point, it becomes, we try to schedule with you, we go to the door, we make sure that we're making contact. But I will say that the engine companies don't just go out and look at your homes without trying to get a hold of you. So there is an attempt to make sure that we have contact at every iteration of the inspection cycle. And by the third inspection, if at that point, it's really just the presence and the notices, and then there is the attempt to actually make contact with a person. So every effort is made to make sure that there is a point of contact, there is a conversation, and there is an opportunity to try to educate. With that, absolutely, someone might not be available. They may not be around. There's nothing that can be done other than try very diligently to make contact. We send letters, and we do just about everything that we can to make sure that we do have that. So with that, I think actually beyond that, I'd say every effort is made to make sure that we do have a chance to actually get a hold of a person, explain to them in clear text, face to face, what they need to do in order to, make the situation better.
So I have a follow-up in terms of the first drive, the engine companies. I'm not sure how they function. They don't go in, just from outside they make the determination?
Correct. And that's because
Because we have very wooded properties. I'm not sure you can make that assessment curbside.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah,
No, you can actually see a tree touching a roof from the street or and the reason I say that is I know that I've seen them myself.
Okay.
If you don't see something, you don't flag it.
Okay.
It's only if something exists. There's never a suspicion that something may exist. like on the back side of the property, if you haven't been invited to go out there, because that's the other thing that we will not do. We will not encroach on a person's privacy. We will not violate their property, and we will not go out and do anything that we don't have the authority to do. So that's why at first it's really taking a look at this, at the properties. And the other thing is taking into consideration how many properties have to be inspected. That's why inspections are broken up into triennial cycles. It would not be achievable to visit every single property, do a half-hour, 45-minute inspection. It just wouldn't be practical. So as a best practice, this is the way that these things are conducted.
Okay. And it seems there are still 6 or 8 properties that are on the list. What happened with them? Did they not respond?
We had no response from any of these that I'm aware of. And they just did not make any kind of progress, or didn't indicate that they were intending to. I would say that for these properties right here is probably just no contact. They did not respond to anything that we did.
Okay.
Couple of weeks ago, at an event, I met a resident from Berkeley, and there was a lot of anger in her because, we were discussing about the commissioner's, the role as a commissioner, and she was asking me some questions. And she said that she was very, very ticked off with the way Berkeley approached, her to do a lot of fire safety measures. And I contrasted it with our own county and our district here. And then I found out that, I felt like volunteering, opening out my door and opening out my property for inspection, because I should give you props, all of you, and the LAHCFD for, making this such a pleasant experience. There is trepidation, but there is also a lot of faith in doing what we do, because there's like trust between both parties. So
No, thank you for saying that. I know one of the things about Berkeley is they effectively adopted an ordinance that was more like a reach code for Zone 0, which is, I think, the thing. They were very forward leaning in that. Zone 0, if you aren't aware, was identified for clarification and definition by a subgroup, and they're responsible for providing that by the end of the year so that a 2026 January adoption would be effective. So for us, I think that we definitely don't ever want to push something that's not codified or that's identified and hopefully very static and reliable. I believe that our process, that it's built out really on the hazard zones. We have 100-foot and we have 30-foot inspections, depending on what zone you are. So there's a structure, there's a methodology that makes a lot of sense, and it's not too invasive when it comes down to it. I think that everybody gets concerned when somebody's telling them what to do on their own property. And that's never easy. But just like we tell a business owner, what we're doing is we're hoping to decrease either the impact of a potential event or liability. And for you to have a clear understanding, just as if you were to have some form of an illness and know that you have family history, you would do everything you could in order to make yourself successful. This is your identification of a pre-existing condition. These homes have pre-existing conditions. So the right and smart thing to do is pay attention and try to do everything that you can within reason and your ability to make those corrections that are possible. But individually, people are the only ones that people that own properties are the only ones that can legally do anything on that property. So without that partnership with the community, none of this works. So with that, I think that with the staff here, we're really trying to just make a very palatable program that does as much in a cooperative way. And I feel like we've done a good job at it. So I'm actually pretty proud of what we've done.
Other commissioner questions or comments? I'll say, first of all, I want to thank you. This is a really hot topic, and people are really, for the obvious reasons, really coming to figure out how do we get all our residents to sanitize their properties? And there's this spectrum that everyone's learning about from, the ultimate is if everyone would come do voluntary HIZs and spend an hour with personally, that's the best. How do we get people there? And this is in the same pool of how do we get people to sanitize that? Berkeley and Truckee have other sort of ways of trying to combine, or how do you balance enforcement kind of and mandating things with education and getting 100%. So we're all figuring out. So I really appreciate the collaboration and the innovation that you're participating with us in figuring this out. And I'm really pleased to see that there's no one here today. Like, for years past, you get people saying, hey, I never heard about this. I'm here tonight. What are you doing to me? That just shows that the communication is really working. And, we've still got 8 people who may be absent. We got a lot of absent homeowners who just don't read their mail. But the fact that they're going from 51 to 8 means a lot of outreach is happening both, in concert, both groups. And that's the way we want to go as we figure out. And I know that now the town is obviously very interested also, can't speak for them, but they're very interested in how do we get everyone to make action on their property. So really pleased to see all this activity as we all figure out the right way. And I love the fact that it seems very supportive of residents. And I hope they recognize that when they start getting notices that, look, you really got to clean this up. So thank you very much for this continued innovation.
Right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I just want to remind you, we are very proud to be serving Los Altos Hills and everyone here. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Where am I here? Okay. Moving on to any public comment on this, by the way? I see one here.
Alan Epstein. I live in the district. I just have a couple of follow-up questions, just for clarity's sake, if I might. I listened to Chief Estrada describe the process. I'm curious as to what part of town did they actually inspect, because the properties that are listed here are just on six streets in town. Secondly, the description of the inspection process seems to be different from what's done under the weed abatement program, yet the resolution, as I understand it, is to put these 8 properties on the weed abatement list and to have the weed abatement people do something about it. And if I'm wrong there, please, please correct me. And then the other question I have is, he mentioned that he doesn't look at properties that don't have a building on it. And I'm surprised by that, because many of us have properties in our neighborhoods that don't have buildings on them, and they have a large number of weeds on those properties. I've heard Councilmember Tyson talk about the one near his house, and I have one near my house. And my last question relates to those properties that are on the weed abatement list. When is the weed abatement work done? Because we as citizens are all responsible for getting it done by May 31st, but I know that property near my house still hasn't had its weed abated, so I'm very curious as to when that will take place. Sorry for all the questions.
No, that's good.
Thank you very much.
Actually, I think we'll sort of, we can address some of these in terms of the zones that that are, is it a geographic split up or?
They're by shape. So of these, if there are several that are on the same streets, that would probably be the best condition of the site.
Right.
So the effort would be
Great.
I would say look at 50. So how is that distributed?
And
I would say that has a much wider distribution. This is a called down list after some effort. So
great.
with regard to the inspection or the process for county weed abatement, it's different. We're finding them and we're funneling in. At that point, they change to a different type of property, and the effort takes place. The first effort from this process will be sometime in the fall. It has to go through another hearing and has to come back to you, but it comes back through the county. So it seems similar, but it is different. We're bringing it, and it's different in town, it's different scope of work. That's why all of that has to happen before anything can be levied against the first time.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item 6B, which is the public hearing. Item C is a public hearing to consider abatement of hazardous weed, brush, and or rubbish growing on certain described properties within the wildland urban interface and declare to be a public nuisance. Let's see. We've had the report. I don't think we need another one here on, yes, just checking. Okay, before opening the public hearing, are any clarifying questions from the commission? Think so. Okay, I will now open the public hearing. The time is 7:42 p.m. Please note, if any members of the public would like to contest the inclusion of their name on parcel number in Exhibit A of Resolution number 25-07 of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to proceed with the abatement of weeds, brush, and or rubbish, now is the time to do so. Any and all persons interested having any objections to said list or to any matter contained therein may appear and be heard. Are there any comments from the public?
I see none online.
See none? And, in that case, we will close the public hearing. The time is 7:42 p.m. Item 6C is the resolution 25-07 to proceed with abatement of weeds, brush, and or rubbish. Assistant Chief Estrada and let's see, Assistant File Marshal Falk. Well, are there any changes need to be made to the exhibit before we proceed? Great, thank you. No more clarifying questions, I'm assuming. I will entertain a motion in a second.
So moved, Tonka.
Thank you. CG moves second. Thank you. Okay, any public comments? Didn't expect any. Let's have a roll call. Yes.
Sorry. Commissioner Basigi,
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Okay, and the motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you very much. And here's a related item 7. Item 7 is to adopt resolution 25-08, setting a public hearing at the July 15th regular commission meeting for objections to the proposed special assessment costs associated with the abatement of weeds or brush growing and or rubbish contained on certain described properties. Please note the WUI enforced properties attached to our just passed resolution 25-07 are not included on this list due to the property tax assessor office submission deadline. So it's an issue of schedules. If applicable, special assessment costs relating to inspections and abatements on the properties attached to that previous resolution will be included on the special assessment list provided in June 2026. Any clarifying questions? Great. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Warren moves to adopt 2508.
Tyson seconds.
Thank you. Any public comments? Expecting none. Let's vote.
Okay, President Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi,
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi, Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Right, and the motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8, which is the fire chief report. I first want to note that item 15 in the future is a report on the June 11th fire at Page Mill and Via Feliz Road that everyone's all interested in. So we'll have that discussion about that event later in the meeting. This is not part of this report here. Item 8A is the monthly report for May 2025, and 8B is an update on Station 8 staffing. Fire Chief Carrico, we're very pleased to have you here in person. Thank you. Please provide your report.
Good evening, President Spring, commissioners, staff, and the public that's in the audience. Again, Swannaker Gal, Fire Chief with Santa Clara County Fire Department. We have our May report up on the screen there. Go ahead and go to the next one, please. Next one, please. So again, we certainly understand that some of the data or the data elements, because they're aggregates, could be confusing. But up here, again, the main takeaway is we try to make it very clear if there's a trend up or if there's a trend down. There are fluctuations by month. I don't have my supervision to see what the number is over there. I'm sorry, I left my computer over there. Over on the right-hand column, you can see, I think there was around 90. Can you see how many calls?
98, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Of which, we're seeing just year by year that there's an increase in call volume in the Los Altos Hills County Fire District, as we see throughout our district, just in general, there's more calls for service. Go ahead and go to the next slide. We did have 2 fires. One was a vehicle fire that was contained pretty quickly and a small brush fire that was in May. There was a larger fire in June that I think you have on the agenda to talk about. Did I hear that right? But those two fires, the report and the ops chief in particular did not feel that they were significant incidents because they were handled by the first two units pretty quickly. And I think the vegetation fire was like a 5x5 brush fire. I think on the last slide, it was the map. It is okay.
Oh.
In the meantime, again, the map is just, again, that's there. That's part of the packet. Just shows the distribution of the calls and the call type by color. With that said, I'll pause and then I'll go on to a general report. So is there any questions about the actual monthly report?
Any comments? Seeing
Okay.
none.
Okay, so the second part is Palo Alto Station 8 staffing. Typically, in the month of June, starting June 15th, Palo Alto would staff that station. We have worked collaboratively with Palo Alto, in which County Fire is staffing that station today and started on June 15th, and will continue to staff the station through June 30th. Then Palo Alto firefighters will come in and staff the station through July 15th. And then County Fire will come in and staff the station from July 16th through the end of the month. And then we will go back to the normal rotation. Part of this is because of the expansion and reorganization of the fire district that was directed by the board in January. So we have worked with an incredible pace, I will say, to be focused on opening up 4 additional stations down in South County, all of them ALS. All 3 staffing with just an extraordinary amount of, when I say challenges, only 1 station is owned by the district. The other ones are collaborative partners with Gilroy and with just one of them being in Morgan Hill and one over at Dinosaur Point on Pacheco Pass. So overall, the report for the district is that we will have, as of July 1st, operations from this district with the northernmost fire station being El Monte, all the way down to Dinosaur Point off of Pacheco Pass and off of Highway 152. We're going up to 19 stations with, again, expanding our fire fuels crew to having the ability, and they did respond to that incident that occurred in June, where they go in and they do a lot of mop up. And they, again, cut line and create a perimeter. So our wildfire program, our pre-fire management and wildfire program that really has an expanding operational arm and operational capability, it continues to grow and continues to, or will benefit the communities all the way from Los Altos Hills down to potentially Dinosaur Point. So with that said, that's kind of where we're at with Station 8 staffing. And I just want to, thank, I know Palo Alto Fire is not here, but I just want to thank them for their flexibility to shift a little bit staffing. Because again, for us on July 1st, that's right before the 4th of July, it's a pretty heavy lift to start those that operations down there in South County. So I'll pause there and take questions.
Any comments, questions? Nope, no good.
Okay. And lastly, again, it's part of the public safety report. We are going through an extensive reaccreditation process where we look at 5 years of data. We have our vendor basically going through all of the changes, because again, we had a change in computer-aided dispatch at County Communications that caused a bit of some challenges with our reporting just because the data elements did not line up. A lot of in the weeds stuff here, but just high level, just know that really that 5-year look, that's very transparent, that's intended to be educational for the people we serve and the community and the stakeholders and the authorities, as well as for us as an organization to do better. And that's the mantra of the County Fire. You have, for us, the accreditation model is it's never good enough. Continue to strive to be better and do better. And that is what we'll do with our standards of cover, our community risk assessment, and our self-assessment manual that some of the staff here was very intimately a part of. So as we work through some of these big challenges, we continue to be the op area coordinator for the county. We continue to be the Region 2 coordinator for the state. That's 16 counties, all the way from the Oregon border down to Monterey County. So the fire department operationally is incredibly privileged to serve not just here locally in the community, but just be influential up and down the state. So with that, I'll end the report and see if there's any further questions.
Please.
So my question was, what is the current fire season looking like at this point?
So we had our what we call a STEM refresher, and that's a class that we give locally in collaboration with Cal OES and Cal Fire, and then we have our staff there to kind of work through what does the predictive season look like. Because of the late rains, again, what we know, and you see it today. What the fires typically have been all the way from Contra Costa County, Alameda County, and our county is grass. So what you're seeing are firefighters chasing these grass fires that are moving really fast. Why? Because the grass grew pretty tall, because we had an extended winter wetting rains. And then the vegetation that's thicker, the brush, really won't be, I don't want to say flammable. It is flammable. It's not really the conditions for it to really take off until later in the season. The good news is that the timber, again, because of our 2 wet winters that we've had back to back, has been really good in terms of the actual heavy timber that's in the Santa Cruz Mountains and the area, obviously, that you look above you. That doesn't mean that that's not a hazard. That's still something that, if the conditions are right, wind, low humidity, low moisture recovery, late in the season, it's always a potential. But we're seeing a lot of just grass burning right now, and then we're getting a lot of intel from the wildfire cameras, and there's some partnership with the hills with some N5 sensors. So again, we continue to work with partners to be alerted faster, quicker, so that we can get boots on the ground quicker and mitigate the situation as fast as we can.
Thank you.
Any other questions? That was a great question. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Let's see, any public comments? I see one coming up here.
Chief, thank you very much for the report. I've written to the chief about the changes that have taken place in the report, and I copied Manager Logan on my questions. My biggest concern is that the reports are aggregated for the year, and that unlike the previous reports where we got data relative to the prior month, we don't see any current data. We only see an aggregate data. And if you know anything about driving a large ship, you turn the wheel, you don't see any action for many, many miles. And I think this is the same case with the reports that we're receiving now, that they're comprehensive, they provide a lot of information, but it's not current information. And it doesn't provide information with regards to the individual units. And I provided this feedback to the chief, and she was kind enough to respond to me, and hopefully maybe we'll see some changes. With regards to the comments about the South County Fire District, I know that one of the battalion chiefs will be moving down to the South County Fire District. And I'm curious, I'm assuming it's not the battalion chief from Station 74, but I'm curious as to how that change will impact the coverage up here in the northern part of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, please.
So great question. Definitely would be a concern. As we work through effects bargaining, what we have is Battalion 74 here in El Monte, Battalion 83 in Los Gatos, Battalion 68 at Maston Station, and what we are renaming Safety 72. So Safety 72 will be staffed 24/7, like a battalion chief, but it is a developmental position in which a person on the battalion chief list, meaning you are eligible to be a battalion chief today, will staff that. If there is nobody who is eligible to staff that available, then a battalion chief will staff that. So we are not losing a battalion. We are not losing coverage in terms of command and control. We are, in essence, making that change to help fiscally conserve some money while we work through what the cost is to take on South County. So although initially the plan of service for South County was to move a battalion chief, there was no mention of what we would do to replace that person. And as we work through effects bargaining with the labor, with the collaborative relationship that we have with Local 1165, we were able to come up with a solution to make sure that that role for command and specifically safety officer was filled in the district or in the Central Fire Protection District, located still at the 7 Spring Station as it is housed today.
Great. Thank you very much for a very extensive answer. All right. Moving on. Any questions from commissioners? Seeing no more. Okay. Moving on to item 9. Item 9A is a report to summarize the public hearing on vacant positions that's now required by. Did I miss something? Oh, okay. Okay, this is required by California Government Code Section 3502.3. This is a new annual thing that we're going to learn about. General Manager Logan, Finance and IT Manager Morreale, and Strategic Planning Consultant Scott, who's at the microphone, will be providing us a report.
Yes, President Spreen and members of the commission, can you hear me at this point?
Yes.
Yes, it's so nice to see you again. Yes.
Hang on just a second. Do we know if Ms. Scott or Jay Logan? I think Jay Logan would like to introduce this. So we'll give her some words for just a second.
Yes,
sure.
Thank you, President Spreen, commissioners, staff, and public. As you stated, California Assembly Bill 2561 added Section 3502.3 to the California Government Code that is effective January 1st of 2025. This new law requires that local public agencies to present the status of their vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts in a public hearing before the governing board once per fiscal year prior to the adoption of the final budget. And the report tonight will be presented by Finance and IT Manager Morreale with comments from Consultant Scott. Mr. Morreale, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Logan, and thank you, members of the commission. Yes, that's the opening remark to this. This is a new report. I'll be tag teaming tonight with our HR consultant, Marcy Scott, as well, to present this new information. And maybe next slide, please, Court. This is a new requirement, and I want to thank the County Council for bringing this to our attention. It is a brand new law. It went into effect just last year, I believe, and it's effective in 2025. And I would say it's very timely and opportune. It aligns very nicely with the budget. And if you look at the plethora of rich information on tonight's agenda related to personnel actions, it also aligns very nicely with that as well. Next slide, please. So there's two really purposes for this report. It's to have the public hearing, as General Manager Logan mentioned. It also it's intended to put forth a metric, and the metric of what is the status of our vacancies as of this point in time. So it will provide that metric as to vacancies. But I think more importantly, it speaks to the efforts that the district takes in recruiting and retaining its staff. So that, in essence, is the metric and the data that we want to put forward this evening in this small but important report. And it is only reported once a year, once per fiscal year, right at the time, actually before the time of budget adoption. Next slide, please. So if there are some personnel actions on the agenda this evening, and if the commission later on approves the addition of the 0.5 additional position, we are pleased to report that as of this evening, with tonight's action, 85% of all personnel positions will be filled. This brings me back to when we provided our initial budget presentations, And we mentioned that we really are projecting full staffing, and it looks like we're well on our way to full staffing at 85% now, and we believe soon into fiscal year 25-26 we may closely approach full staffing at 100%. So we're pleased to give that statistic. Next slide, please. So this is where we are. These are the numbers. The staff report has the actual listing by actual position and FTE, but in this broad format, as I'm presenting here, given the status as of this evening, we have 11.45 positions out of 13.5 authorized, and that is at 85% filled rate and essentially a 15% unfilled rate as of this evening. So with that, there are various positions that at this point remain unfilled. One is a project specialist. We have half of an operations manager position after tonight's action that would be unfilled. We have a portion of the EMS manager position vacant and a portion of the admin specialist's position vacant. But if you look at it in terms of bodies, essentially 2 bodies out of the 13.5 FTEs will be essentially vacant. And with that, I will go to the next slide and pass it on to Marcy Scott.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners and staff. Just briefly, this is an opportunity to focus on the district's continuing efforts and strategies for recruitment and retention at the district, which are ongoing. They include the new benefits package, which has been put in place this year. The last piece of deferred comp is literally coming in just a few weeks. The professional development program, which includes a wide variety of training resources and education opportunities, the budgetary structure and resources needed to support all of the work that's done at the district, and the strategic initiatives that are completed across the organization, ensuring job descriptions, compensation, and benefits align with local compensation and trends and the flexibility needs, addressing personnel development opportunities as the district expands and takes on periodic changes as occur in disaster and fire service agencies. Next slide, please. And engaging in the strategic and annual work plans to continue to update work and plans around work and adapt to changes, and also working with our partner agencies, the public, stakeholders, residents, and matching the district missions, goals, and principles of fire science to all of the planning and development of programs and projects across the organization. Also actively recruiting on an ongoing basis and retaining top talent to deliver all the work that is occurring here, and to continue to have well-qualified employees. And lastly, working with our regional partners to identify areas of opportunity in workforce planning and utilizing our resources together to continue to address our work plans here. So with that, I think that completes our presentation. If you have any questions, we're happy to address those.
Any comments from Commission? Oh, Jim?
I have a very
Use the mic. Yeah.
I have a very trivial question. The granularity of the full-time equivalent was something like 0.25. How do you account for 0.25 person?
Russ, do you want
Sorry.
to respond to that? The question was the fractions of people.
Yes.
How to account for 0.25
So
FTE.
even though we may have an authorized position that's 1.0, under their existing current contract, they may be only certain hours per week. So that fraction really deals with that fraction of the total annual hours. So that's how we deal with the fractions at this point in time. Yes. So if we will look at the number of bodies that we have, of course, it's more than 13.5. But if you look at the number of hours, it's calculated based upon the number of hours that's worked per year.
Okay, that's okay. Does that answer your question?
I'm just trying to figure out, in terms of practically, how do you staff a position at the 0.25? Is there a 0.25 percent, pardon me, a quarter% time FTE, a person that's employed by the
Yes, I think
organization?
in some cases, even though we have the position
Yeah.
marked for having more time or half time, in some cases, we're only doing 0.2, a quarter time.
And the smallest amount is 0.25?
I think the quarter is the smallest we've gone to. Is that
It,
right?
it typically goes to quarters. That's the more typical
Yeah.
as well. So we have people that range from 20 hours per week. Some might be 28, 32. So depending upon the number of hours, that's how the fraction is determined.
Great. Any other comments? Okay, is that it? Are we done? Great, thank you. Well, I'm sorry. Oh, I forgot to have the public hearing for this. I know we're getting used to this new procedure. I will now open the public hearing. The time is 8:07 p.m. Please note if any members of the public would like to provide comment on the position vacancy status reporting requirements pursuant to California Government Code Section 3502.3, now is the time to do so. Any and all persons interested may appear and be heard. Are there any comments from the public? I guess I should officially open. Any comments from the public? Seeing
I
none
see none
here.
online.
Thank you. The public hearing is now closed. The time is 8:08 p.m. Any discussion? I don't expect any here. Great. Thank you. And I'll just say that speaking just for myself, I think we're very proud of the hiring status, both in the limited number of vacancies and the quality of the people that are filling our positions. So I really appreciate the chance to say that. So thank you everyone for being a part of this. Moving on to item 10A, another major thing to talk about. Item 10A is a report on the fiscal year 26 budget, which will be followed by item 10B to adopt the district's fiscal year 26 budget, and 10C to approve the district budget narrative. Finance and IT Manager Morreale, if you could please provide us that report.
Yes, President Spreen and members of the commission, thank you. We're very excited to present this evening. This one presentation will cover not only the background as to our discussions with the county, but also bring you up to date as to where we are with the budget and as it's presented for adoption. Next slide, please. So the actions tonight are, as you mentioned, to receive the report, giving you a status as to how the county hearings and county workshops went. I provided a report last time, but now we'll give you the latest update. B is to adopt the budget, and that typically results in a budget line item by GL account number that we send the county, and we will send that to the county as soon as tomorrow. And then not adopting, but approving the budget narrative, which has been presented in full force this evening with all updated with the numbers and all updated as to the adopted actions that resulted this past month or so. And next slide, please. So my gosh, when you think about the budget process, it goes back so far to September 17th of 2024. I highlighted here in bold the public meetings that we've had, and we've had 3 specific public meetings at the commission level. And when you consider what's happened at the Board of Supervisors level, we're talking about five public meetings as well related to the budget. Since our last report, we've finished our budget hearings at the Board of Supervisors with the county, and that happened May 12th, 13th, and 14th. And our budget was heard on the 13th, and I reported that last time, and it was accepted without exception. And on June 9th through 10th, that's when the budget hearings took place, with the adoption of the budget being on the 12th. And of course, tonight is the 24th. Next slide, please. And we have stayed true to the mission of the budget. This is a slide that we presented well in the beginning. And really the theme this year was keep the momentum with a focus on the exciting prospect of a new fire facility. Of course, the exciting prospect of furthering the I-280, which, as you know now, is under contract and is starting in the planning process and aggressively moving towards implementation. Of course, HIZ is a key focus, outreach. A big part of this budget as well was leveraging contracts to make sure that we get the work plan items done in the most effective way, and also to leverage our staffing along with contract services as well. So the real focus was to keep the momentum and realize the work plan. Next slide, please. We are so pleased to report this evening that we do have a budget that's been adopted by the county. It was adopted on June 12th, and it was adopted without exception. There is one small exception, a $45 difference that has to deal with a interagency fee update made at the county level. But the county accepted all of the commission's proposals and all of the line items and all the revenues, of course, but all the appropriations in full. So we are so pleased to report this. It was quite a challenging year at the county level. And quite a lot of work gone into it. But we are pleased to report this evening that the full budget has been adopted without exception. So if we went back to the February meeting and the February narrative that was given to the commission, you will find that all the numbers except for $45 remain the same. What we have updated in the narrative, of course, is text related to the adoption action, and updated it for the most current information we had on job descriptions and things of that nature. But in essence, it's the same numbers that was approved by the commission back in February. The next slide, please. This is the budget focus again. 73% of all appropriations relate directly to fire and EMS services, life and safety projects. 27% deal with support and operations. But as I mentioned the last time, if we really do add in staffing and align staffing with our deliverables, I really think we're in the high 80% to 90% of all dollars going to life and property projects and fire and EMS. Staffing remains the same at 13.5 FTEs, and we are pleased to report that employee benefits are included fully in the line items, and they are being implemented. Contracts are being signed as we speak. In fact, they were signed just this past week on the employee benefit programs. So that reality is soon to come. Within July is the time frame at this point. Next slide, please. If we look at the progression with our discussions with OBA, that's the Office of Budget and Analysis at the county level. We started with a draft budget of 17.1 million. They adjusted our last year's base by $419,000 for operational routine items. And what went to the County Board of Supervisors was somewhere close to $4.8 million in proposals, and all of those were proposed and accepted without exception. If you look at the add-ons to the budget, they really have to deal with I-280, the programmatic EIR, project contingencies, fixed assets, technology and professional services, and staff training. That, in essence, is where all the new dollars were placed, and they work nicely in aligning with our work plans and the strategic mission of the district. Next slide, please. So there are 3 actions actually on the agenda this evening that align with the budget, and henceforth, the commission will see these 3 actions every year. Of course, there's the AB 2561, which we spoke about. There's the budget adoption, and later this evening, there's the GAN. And this trifecta of actions really seal the deal with the budget and bring it to its finality. So it is something new this year, but we're fully sure that next year you'll see this same action alignment next June when we bring the budget forward as well for 26-27. And next line item, next slide. So what you have before you is the narrative. You have the memo report. You have the Exhibit A, which is in essence a budget which we give the county. And we added, as we did last year, the service area program budget, which we're so proud of because really it puts dollars to work plans in a service delivery mode. I didn't list this year that the service area program budget is under construction. It aligns beautifully with the total allocations, but as we reorganize staffing and reorganize responsibilities between work plan areas, we will modify the surface area program within itself. The total dollars will not change. We will realign dollars and resources and priorities based upon the reorganization that we'll be talking about in our planning sessions in just a couple months. So that's what you have before you this evening. I bring everyone's attention to the budget message and the budget overview on page 3 and page 11, and the fiscal highlights on page 14. Next slide, please. I would be remiss if I didn't mention just how important the county budget is. We are part of the County of Santa Clara budget. Again, it's a 500-page document, quite a remarkable document, a lot of work that the county did putting it together in a very, very challenging year on many levels. And if anyone is interested and wants to see it at the county budget level, they can see that on the County of Santa Clara website. And in particular, our district budget appears on page 480, page 482, and page 483. Those are key items that talk about our overall district, talk about the overview of what we do, and it highlights all the district requests. And that's where you can find us within the County of Santa Clara budget. And last slide, I believe. I also want to bring to the attention of the commission that what the budget doesn't include are $6 million in rollovers. And I'm also pleased to report this evening that on June 17th, the County Board of Supervisors approved all the rollovers that you see on this screen. And these rollovers are important because they deal with multi-year projects that we advanced in prior years. So the $6 million is essentially made up of the fire trucks, which are on order, 1 fire truck, 2 fire engines. We were able to roll forward the full amount of the $1 million of appropriation related to I-280. We were able to roll forward the new fire facility study of $372,000, which will also be added on to what we put in additionally into the new 25-26 year, and also appropriation for the programmatic EIR. All those items are will be added into the budget somewhere in July and August of next year by the county. And next slide, please. So lastly, I just want to thank so many people. Of course, this commission for providing us with the resources and the guidance and the strategy for developing this budget. It all comes from your strategic plan that really is the foundation of the budget. General Manager Logan for her exceptional leadership in this entire process, not only this year, but for many years related to this budget. District staff, just phenomenal in building the budget from the ground floor. County Office of Budgets and Analysis just did a stellar job. They always have, but this year in particular, there were so many moving parts at the county level that they put it all together for us so beautifully and represented our requests so beautifully. So I won't mention particular names at the county OBA, but we know who they are, and we're just so thankful for all their help. And of course, County Council for all their help throughout. And a special thanks to Corey and Serena, of course, in the heavy lifting behind the scenes and putting all the numbers together and all the documents together. So with that, I think that ends the presentation of the budget.
I'll say wow. Any comments from commissioners?
For a job well done, you
Okay.
know, big kudos to you. Thank you for all your diligence and doing such a great job.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
I was just going to second
Okay.
what you said. It's an amazing amount of work.
I see
And
all
it's
smelling
done
faces up here. And it's really, I mean, actually, I
incredibly
want to draw
high
attention
quality.
to the budget narrative. If you haven't really looked at that in detail, that is an amazing creation and something that really reflects the sum total of what every staff member has, everything about that has rolled into that. And if you want to, like an X-ray view of what we do as an organization and how we do it, it's in that narrative. So it's just incredible. So thank you to everyone. And, you know, that first slide with all the checklists, you can really be proud of, and you realize, wait, that starts in September. So we got breathe easy for just a couple months and we'll start the whole thing over again. But for now, everyone should really, really proud of how this worked out. And especially, as you say, the county had a tough year for us, for our things to go through. with such precision and focus. Just shows how well this has been put together by Russ and Serena and Corey and everybody. So really amazing. So thank you. That's all I can say. Let's see. Any let's see. Let's see if there's any public comments on this. Any public comments on this?
I see none online.
That's wonderful. Okay, great. In that case, we move on to 10B, which is, let's see. Yeah, I will now entertain a motion to adopt the fiscal year 26 budget of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District and to approve the fiscal year 26 budget narrative. Can we have a motion in a second?
Warren moves to adopt the 2025-2026 budget and approve the budget narrative.
And a second.
Second. Tyson seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion? I don't expect any here. Any public comment on that? Seeing none, let's move to a vote.
Okay. President Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi,
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi, Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Okay, and the motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to item 11. This is that GAN thing, which got mentioned. This is adopting resolution 25-09, establishing fiscal year 26 appropriations limit. And we are going to have another report from Finance and IT Manager Moriali.
Yes, and I'll make this really short. You get this every year, and this is the GAN that we present every year. The only big difference this year is that we're presenting it during budget. And we have to thank County Council for aligning this timing. As you may recall in the past, the county was presenting these calculations around October or November of each year. But the county has now aligned that with the budget process. So what you have before you, I won't go through it in total. You have the new budget GAN calculation for 25-26. Of course, we meet the requirements of the GAN. So with that, I won't bore you with any more information or statistics. It's a standard report. The big difference is that it is now coming in June. So it's before you for approval and adoption.
Thank you very much. Any clarifying questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
CG moves that we adopt the
GAN limit.
the GAN limit. Yes.
25-09. Okay.
Kadambi seconds.
Kalambie seconds. Thank you very much. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay. President Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi,
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi, Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson, Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Okay, and the motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Moving on to item 12, to approve the Sixth Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement with Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council. Programs Planning and Grants Manager Woods will be providing a summary report for us.
Oh, thank you. Is it working now? Your long distance summary report. Jay, was there an introduction to this too, or?
I'll be glad to have to introduce it. Yes, let me do that. So every year we have an agreement with Fire Safe Council, and we come back to the Board of Commissioners for an amendment. And the amendment to the agreement goes back to January of 2021, as I recall. And then each of the subsequent years, there is an amendment to that agreement. And basically, the amendment brings into focus any changes in the agreement, and particularly then recompensates the agreement with new funding for the year. So that's what we've done. And Eugenia started on this task, about a couple of months ago to get this in line, worked with Fire Safe Council staff, all the service area managers, because the Fire Safe Council agreement is one of our largest vendors, and we're leveraging resources, which is a wonderful way of using their expertise with our expertise and providing these wonderful programs to the community, such as the HIZ, the evacuation routes, community education and outreach. Those are three of the real fundamental programs in the Fire Safe Council agreement. So with that, then I think I'll turn it over to Eugenia. Are you prepared? Does that give you the introduction that was necessary?
Perfect. Actually, that was most of the report, but thank you.
Sorry, I took your report. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. We started in April, and the process that we typically use is to work with each service area to see what other types of services or what other types of adjustments need done, and then we revisit that again, of course, when we changed service area managers in May. Then we work with Fire Safe Council directly for capacity and the other types of recommendations and changes they may have in providing services. And finally, all of us work with finance to put together the numbers and versus the expenditures from the previous amendment, and then the administrative service area with Jay and Sarah and I, and we bring it all over to County Council and go back through all the nuance to make sure that everything works together. So in your packet this year, we have Amendment 6, and it was fully executed on by both parties in preparation for tonight on Friday. So, and I see that we have Amanda online, and perhaps Seth is in the audience. I can't see the audience from where I am.
He is.
Yes, great. Thank you for coming. So we're proud to say that, we're doing the same thing that we did, approximately the same amount as last year, to continue all the amazing project management and program management that they implement for us.
Great. And there's the budget there. Okay, is that it? We should, in that case, any clarifying questions from the commission on this? I think we're all very aware of all the great things we're doing with Fire Safe Council and how important those programs are, especially HIZs, obviously on everyone's radar very strongly. Let's see, in that case, I'll entertain a motion and a second.
One thing, and now that it's popped up, you'll notice the Flashy Fuels pilot project is part of this too. So we're happy to have them join us with that new pilot we're working with this year. And we heard about how all the grasses are growing with the late rains. So it's a perfect nexus.
Thank you. Looking for a motion and a second.
Warren moves.
Great. Warren moves and Tonka seconds, I think. Okay, great. Okay. I see no discussion here. Any public comments on this?
I see none.
Seeing none. Okay. In that case, let's move to a vote.
Okay, President Spreen.
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi.
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you. Moving on to item 13. Item 13A is to receive a presentation on the N5 Shield wildfire early warning sensors. General Manager Logan, will you please provide us a report?
Yes, thank you, President Spreen and commissioners, staff, and public. At the last commission meeting, which was May 20th, a report introduced the N5 Shield, or called the N5 Wildfire Early Warning Detection Technology, to the commission, and also provided a report from the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors that also met on the same day, May 20th, 2025, to look at that technology for the entire county. So that was presented last month. The Board of Supervisors approved the procurement of 50 N5 sensors, and they approved a pilot project for the county to deploy the sensors in various wildland urban interface. So it's WUI technology locations within Santa Clara County. The N5 sensors are currently installed in nearby jurisdictions around LAHCFD. And to continue the network of these sensors, the district can serve as a pilot site for installation of approximately 10 to 15 sensors units with a focus on open space and high-risk areas. It is suggested that 3 of the sensors be located in nearby county parks with proximity to the district to test the connectivity of the network and the regional benefit. The funding of the procurement of these sensors for the district has been allocated in the FY 24-25 budget. The funds have been approved by the county to roll over into the district's FY 25-26 budget. So that was one of our main rollover areas. Tonight, consultant Scott and I will provide a N5 sensor presentation in response to questions that were raised at the meeting on May 20th. Commission at the May 20th commission meeting. If there are any questions not answered during the commission meeting tonight, staff will research the questions and include answers back at a future report to the commission. The recommendation that would be helpful to us from the commission tonight is to provide direction to staff to present a plan to procure and implement the N5 Shield project at a future meeting. And basically what we need to do is we first need to have a plan to procure the sensors. Secondly, a plan as to how we're going to locate them. And that location is very fundamental and I think pretty highly technical, because the location has to be within the proximity of our network of surrounding agencies, cover our district, and also provide some regional benefit to our surrounding neighbors. So the location is going to be a combination of the N5 technology folks, the exclusive reseller of the N5 device, which is Fire Safe Council. They've done that with all the other sensors in the county because they're the exclusive reseller. And then thirdly, with Central Fire. And from what I've read and what I know, it's pretty technical, the components of wind, because they're particulate matter driven. And so the wind, the topography, the height, and remember too, we need to put them on public areas or else get a right of way, a right of entry authorization from other agencies to put them there, such as Burn Preserve, Hidden Villa, or the areas we're looking at, Rancho San Antonio. Mid-Penn Open Space wants to participate with us. So that's just the location part that has to be worked out. And then the third part is how is the response going to occur? When the algorithm goes off on the device, where does it go? Who's going to respond? How quickly and how sustainable and how scalable is that response? So these are the things that before we get into it, it'd be helpful if the commission says, yes, go do it, come back to us with a plan to make sure that the staff is focused on doing what the commission wishes to have done with the N5 sensors early warning detection. So that's my introduction. And Marcy, I'll turn it over to you with some of the questions that you and I went through that need to be answered for the commission tonight. Marcy is doing this because she is just very enthused and excited about this technology. So she's becoming a fire science expert here.
Yes, thank you so much, General Manager Logan. So we have 8 slides. We won't read from them. I have a little bit of supplemental information, and then we'll get to questions. So again, the goal with this item is to provide some foundational information for everybody, so we'll all be on the same page, and describe some of the experiences with our regional partners. So the first slide has this quote that's kind of interesting. We heard the fire chief earlier say, you know, we have some moisture right now. We're in a pretty good place, but later on, as it continues to get dry, we're going to be in trouble. But we've seen these trends where we don't have much rain and it's very dry all year. So this quote kind of caught our eye, that it's kind of like the traffic, always getting worse. So next slide, please. So the city of Oakland announced a pilot program with the N5 sensors 2 years ago. The department works closely with the vendor to coordinate on communication around alerts. And what we found is each entity kind of structures this a little differently. So we're learning what these other agencies are doing in terms of how the communication works. In their case, the dispatch center is able to read the status of each sensor at any given time, but the alerts actually go to the vendor, and then the vendor contacts the city fire department. Next slide, please. We also have San Jose Water, which is a private utility company, and they have invested in N5 sensors. As they continue to add to their land sensor network, they are also and have recently announced an investment in global intelligence as a service instead of SaaS. I don't know what all those initials spell, but it's global intelligence as a service, monitoring high resolution thermal data using a global satellite network. And their stated goal is to extend wildfire sensor coverage for over 100,000 acres. So they're mixing technologies now. They're using the N5 sensor, also looking at the satellite technology. And then next slide, please. To our north, we can learn from our regional partners in Palo Alto, Woodside, and Stanford University. They have installed these N5 sensors. And as the general manager mentioned, really important factors are the wind, the topography, and the height of the land all influence the effectiveness of the sensors. And there are two examples on this slide in which the first one was a truck fire, and the sensor really didn't pick that fire up. So there was some assessment and analysis done and some work on the actual sensor to replace the sensor card. The other case, again, which we'll get to and talk more about on the agenda, in that case, it did pick that one up right away. But again, it's the wind patterns that really make a difference. Okay, next slide. So these sensors continuously collect data. The artificial intelligence software analyzes data and makes comparisons throughout the network of sensors. So they talk amongst themselves and compare what they're assessing and are able to make reasoned judgments on whether there should be a warning or an alert. And these sensors are programmed to send either warnings or alerts through cellular connections, which are backed up through Starlink, if that's available. And fortunately for us, the district is a Starlink customer. And next slide, please. You may already be familiar with the Alert California network. This is a whole series of cameras, and you can access their live camera feeds online. Alert California is a UC San Diego public safety program. They participate in a public-private partnership with CAL FIRE and a private company called Digital Path. This partnership, along with the California Department of Forestry, was recognized in the 2023 Time magazine as one of the top innovations of 2023. So again, this is kind of layering technology. These cameras exist and can provide a visual, whereas the sensors are kind of like noses, right? They're sensing the wind and what's in the air. So there are some things highlighted here. There have been issues with privacy concerns around cameras. Again, the sensors don't deal with that. There are no cameras on these N5 sensors. And there are more cost factors along that go with the cameras as compared to the N5 sensors. So next slide, please. This slide just describes some of the challenges as more entities are getting experience. They're dealing with false positives and trying to figure out where is the best setting in terms of how this AI works in terms of making decisions around providing warnings. And I think there's one more slide. And this gets to our immediate Santa Clara County implementation plan. And just to highlight one more time, there are three important factors that are being discussed right now, which is how to procure them. The district has $250,000 available for that procurement. Where to place the first batch of sensors, and later to expand the network. And then finally, who will receive the warnings and alerts and who will respond. So as those issues are addressed, then this program can move forward. So with that concludes the presentation, and we're happy to take questions.
Any questions? Mark?
Yeah, first question on the technology. Does it work 24 hours a day, or does it require daylight to be operational?
24 hours a day. I just remind you too to take a look at the memo report, because I just put a whole list of items down on there. So that may, fill in some of the gaps here that Marcy and I haven't filled in, but they are 24 hours a day. They have a solar panel in it.
But just, the sensor works.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yep. We need it at night.
Yeah. I see Jim has a question, comment?
Is there I mean, I know this is what it's supposed to be working with, with AI, but the question is, do we have a human center of excellence or a specialty that more or less oversees this whole thing and can more or less pass judgment as to which part is working better, which part requires additional improvements, which part. So in other words, trying to discern what the overall picture looks like, in addition to obviously the artificial intelligence, which is embedded in these things.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll be working with the N5 technologists and a cadre of users. So right now there's a Woodside, Portola Valley, Woodside, Stanford Open Space and Palo Alto cadre. We would be part of that. We sat in on one meeting, but I'm eager to get back there. And then the technologists sit there with us and then help us, guide the whole network.
Okay. And second question is there any chance that you mentioned nose and eye? Is there a chance that these things can be coordinated at some point in the future? Not necessarily now, but is there a chance that at some point in the future we could integrate this into the eyes so we can both see and smell?
If I can modify that question a little bit, I guess the question is Central Fire using the Alert California cameras now? Like when they get a report of something, are cameras part of their system?
So the idea is to integrate in the sensor with the Alert California Alert system. But that is
a plan to do that?
Yeah. Oh yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Please. Huh?
So
please.
I know I understand that you mentioned the topography, the wind direction, all these things, and the foliage matter. And typically, on an average, what is the range per sensor, distance-wise?
I think the publication says around 2 to 6 miles, depending on conditions.
I see. Thank you.
Other questions? George?
I think you said that the initial focus would be on public lands only. And I don't know if there's an intent to extend that. I'm just wondering about the limitations of that. Would this extend to where there's an easement for other purposes, say on poles or other things that would allow us a little more flexibility on use?
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, it would be wherever we can get the sensors and wherever the locations are optimum, then we would look at how we could install them there. But as far as people's backyards or something like that, I was trying to make that distinction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
segue to what you mentioned, though, about 2 to 6 miles. That's a very small range, isn't it? So it might look, looking at the pictures of the thing, it doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing. Of course, safety comes first. But, at the town hall, you have the telephone, thing disguised as a tree.
Yeah.
So do you have something like that that can serve as not an eyesore, but a safety beauty?
Yeah, we have to explore all those things because all of those poles belong to other agencies or other entities. And so you have to have permission then to be able to install.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are all questions. We're going to make note of them. Luckily, these presentations are recorded. We go back and take note. Then we'll go to the staff, the technologists at N5 and make sure that we gave you the right answers. So I want permission to come back and rephrase if there was something said that was not accurate.
Yeah, my comments are that really more of assumptions. I'm not asking the question, is that N5 is doing all the logic behind receiving the sensor and deciding whether they should flag an alert or something. I'm curious to hear from them as to how much different each installation is. Is Woodside's installation have different situations than ours might have, and whatever is it mostly just dialing sensitivities up and down, kind of like your thermostat in your house where different parts of the house kind of have different temperatures? Or I wonder how much customization goes into it. Is a question I have. Second, I noticed one of the slide comments was my exact question, which is like, I have a fireplace and chimney. I haven't used it in 15 years. I don't know if it still works, but if I did that, would I find the fire department showing up because, someone sensed it? So I'm curious. I noticed that their answer to it was because of chimneys, they lowered the sensitivity of it. And that's an interesting question about town ordinances versus how do we sense things. And my last comment would be, I'm also interested in not just the wildland areas. Obviously, the wildland areas are where you want to know, because when lightning strikes, you don't even know about it until it's become a big conflagration. I'm also interested in the testing of how does it help within an area like ours, which is suburban and vegetation filled. So in terms of locations, I'd be interested to see if N5 feels like it should everything be at a perimeter, or is there some way, do we want to, are there parts of town that we do want to sort of cover even as a test, to see how it interacts with people's wood stoves and diesel trucks and everything else. So I'm curious to hear, what the advice is in terms of how we cover our entire area, which has a pretty broad spectrum of styles.
Well, then maybe what we can do at the next month's meeting is come back with some of the experts and have them do presentations for you.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm certainly
Yeah.
very positive. Don't let my questions distract from my very positive, and I'm love to see us in an innovative mode trying these things out. And so I'm all for moving forward in the items and the way you've been directed towards how do we procure, figure them out, locations, and get them going. I mean, these questions to me are just support
Right.
our movement on that.
So that it'd be kind of a hybrid meeting then. We would have some technologists here, some experts in the field, and give presentations, and then have a general plan worked out based upon that.
So in terms of direction you want, are you seeing a consensus of in a way you like in terms of us moving forward with location, procurement, and policy?
I see heads nodding. Looks like we've got.
I see no negatives at all to that.
Okay.
Actually, you piqued our curiosity. We want this.
Yeah.
And we just want to see how it works out. And the idea to
Sure.
have the next
Sure.
meeting, to have somebody to, do that is a great one.
So we'll come back to you with the experts and kind of a general roadmap or plan for you.
Sounds great. Let's see if there's any public comment on this.
Alan Epstein. I think we're all very interested in seeing what this technology can do for us. It's not clear from the discussion that we've had that we have the technological expertise to determine how best to implement this. I look forward to hearing how the supplier is going to specify the locations as to where these units should be located. As I understand it, we had a fire on June 11th on Page Mill. And as I understand it, these sensors exist in the Palo Alto area. So we should have had a real world opportunity to evaluate how this system operated. So I'd be very interested in hearing at the next meeting how the N5 detectors worked, how they reported to the vendor, how the vendor reported it to the fire department, and how that compared to the local operations associated with that. So I look forward to learning a lot more about these sensors and their capabilities. Thank you very much.
I can't answer all of your questions. Just to point out, it did say that apparently June 11th did trigger the sensors.
Yeah.
Now, what the policy behind the scenes in terms of how that got communicated, that I don't know. But,
No, the question is, when did the fire occur? When did the device detect it? How did it determine where the fire was? How did it notify people? I mean, just go through the basic operations of the device to evaluate, was it effective? Was it beneficial?
Yep.
That's what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 14. This is the I-280 Hazardous Fuel Reduction Project update from Commissioner Warren.
Representing the subcommittee, thank you very much. All right, so I think this is the final report from the subcommittee because we sunset here in June. Our mandate was only to go through June. Met with the staff today, very positive. Pleased to report out that the staff has negotiated and come to agreement, and we have a finalized agreement here with TRC for PA1, which is the project agreement for number one, which is the design and process and to basically get us through the RFP process for I-280. And so this takes us through the next stage, and Eugenia, correct me if I'm wrong, gets us through the CEQA process and the RFP process and the design implementation, so that the next stage after this would be to go to bid for the actual work.
Wow.
Is that correct, Eugenia?
Yes, that's right. The scope of work, all the field verification for the acres and the vegetation prescription and all of those details.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, because I mean, if you read through the packet, the number of agencies we have to coordinate with, the number of ordinances, regulations, laws that we have to comply with, extremely complex. And so the design, the RFP packages and get them out for bid is not, and then the scope of work, and then to manage that process is not trivial. One of the neat things that the staff has been able to do is that they're establishing relationships with Caltrans. And as part of the recent El Monte Moody Road evacuation route, they coordinated with Caltrans, and as part of that project, actually touched the right-of-way, Caltrans right-of-way at the El Monte 280 Cloverleaf, which was the first time that we've done that. We've gone under 280 with them, but this is the first time we have had actually people on the right-of-way working on the Caltrans right-of-way. And so the staff is learning how to work with Caltrans so that as that's a big partner, in this next phase, that's important. So pleased that we've gotten the project to this point, that the staff is now in position to work with TRC through the PA1, and so that this will take us to the next phase. And I think that completes the charter of the subcommittee.
I would like to mention that we have Field Manager Harmon with us, and put him on the spot, but can you just give us some observations? Because I sat in on your weekly team meeting, and it was just fascinating to hear the conversation and the amount of resources that were out on the cloverleaf, and the conversation about the vegetation and the brush and all that was being removed. Do you want to just make a couple of comments? Harmon, do you want to come up and stand up here? We can get your voice on mic on the tape.
Really going to put you on the spot here.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
sorry about that.
See all this beauty in person.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, there's a
okay.
mic.
Yeah, use
Oh,
that
there's a
mic.
mic,
That's
yeah.
great.
Is that better?
Yes, perfect.
All right. Sorry about that. All right. So it's currently going on. If you guys want to drive by and take a look, you can see it. So there's 4 exits starting on the north. We labeled them Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta. We're currently have completed Alpha Bravo. Today we wrapped up Charlie and the remainder of El Monte. Tomorrow we'll be starting on Delta. So far it's going really well. Traffic control has been really working really good and very diligently. Caltrans is, been working with us, but they don't give us a lot of time to work because we're only allowed to be on site. We can't set the first cone until 10 a.m. And we have to have the last cone picked up by 2 p.m. So it's really only giving us about a 3-hour window to get in there and do the work. But so far it's going. The guys, for this project, we went with Denali Tree Service. They have been busting their derriere. You know what I mean? They've really been getting at it. And the Fire Safe Council has been an integral part of this as well. Jim Young and Barbara Gonzalez, I couldn't ask for a better set of people to work with on this. So it's been going really well. I encourage you to drive by and take a look at it because we put in a lot of hard work to get there and to treat everything while we're there. Does anybody have any questions of me?
No, I just want to say it was I noticed what was getting done. It looks beautiful, and also, I'm always worried about or very proud of the fact that we've had 0 injuries and things, and that is a really difficult area to be working in with traffic, even with cones up, because people are crazy there. So
I'm all over these guys, making sure they're in the right place at the right time.
really appreciate that. So this is a big moment to our first real 280 touch. So.
Yep. I do think one point that Eugenia made for me today is that in the work that's being done for the evacuation route, hazardous trees are outside the scope of what this project is able to do. Hazardous trees will be addressed by the I-280 project. You may go by and see a tree that is evident, clearly something that probably should have been addressed outside of the scope of the evacuation route, but we will get it in the 280 project.
Great.
Yeah, just to add to what he's saying, I actually just sent pictures of there's 2 dead trees in section Bravo. I just sent Eugenia the grid coordinate and the pictures of the 2 trees so that we can make sure that in the CEQA and the scope of work for I-280.
The other thing I'd like to call out on this one is this is also the project that included all the undergrounding coordination through the town and their consultant and layering those permits so that we were in between PG&E and the cable company's undergrounding. So the El Monte Moody project has really upscaled all the things that we've had to coordinate, the amount of people that we've traditionally dealt with, as well as just extra layers of how do we get all this done with all these agencies in a way that lets everyone do their work. It's just really great team, our IHFR team, and as well as Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council.
Great.
Thank you.
Well,
I think that concludes my report. To Jenna, did I miss anything?
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
I think that's great. The only thing I'd like to, one other thing, Jenny, just mention, or Harmon, mention the numbers of the crew, because it's really very impressive. The numbers that are out there trying to get this work done in a short period of time.
So initially we had about 16 of the tree service guys out there. That has fluctuated because obviously they have other commitments as well. But on average, we've had 14 or 15 guys out there. From them, we've had 5 or 6 traffic control guys, and myself and the Fire Safe Council as well.
It's a big effort.
Yeah.
It really is.
Roger. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm just glad to hear about all this. I've always hated that clover leaf. I'm particularly interested in getting the rest of the undergrounding project done, so I'm glad to hear you're done with that, because it's on my list to call Comcast, because they're next up in terms of the completing that, because we want to get those poles down too.
Yeah,
And
we're
I
out of the
also
way.
noticed that you mentioned Denali, and they're the ones that did the brush chipping at my property, and I noticed how fast they were. So it looks as though you're choosing the contractors you work well with, and then continuing to go with them.
Yes, not to boast one contractor over the other, but specifically Denali, they are very quick. They're very efficient. They clean up after themselves. They're easy to work with. I mean, there's a lot of positives there, and why we kind of wanted them on this specific job, especially being the first time for a Caltrans interaction on the interchange.
Great, thank you.
Scalability. They can scale up, on a moment's notice. So that's always been a big help. Fire Safe Council has good relationships with a few tree contractors, but we've noticed Denali's been able to scale really quickly as needed.
Well, first of all, thank you to Commissioners Warren and McDonald for completing their service. Appreciate it. So we'll have to find another ad hoc, to create another ad hoc to get you guys going. Okay. Great. Any public comments on that, by the way? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 15, which is going to be a report on the IHFR programs and the June 11, 2025 fire event. And this will also be Program Planning and Grants Manager Woods providing us a report.
Thank you. Corey, you made me have the slides. So you've heard this report alluded to in several different earlier reports. It touches so many things, and we'll just wait for the slide deck to come up.
Yeah, I have a pop-up window that Zoom is not responding, so give me one sec.
Yay, thank you. Well, I'll start with reminding everyone that the May 3rd wildfire event, education event, included Dr. Swain's presentation where he talked about the different things of climatology and the types of changes that it brings to wildfire. And he also mentioned that he had been in the traffic control area and some of the traffic from the Page Mill evacuation route that happened from April 28th to May 2nd. And that is exactly where this fire ended up being 5 weeks later. So it's interesting and coincidence that we had such authority speaking to the types of vegetation management that needs to happen and the projects, and then he was in it and then it happened. It's not really common to have evacuation routes or escape routes in other areas of the county from fire safe tested this way. And so we're fortunate and unfortunate to have, you know, one of our projects tested and have it get such good grades. Any luck yet? You want, I can share screen if that's easier.
Yeah, maybe go ahead and try that.
Okay. I don't have permission from here to share my slides.
Hang on. Actually, while they're getting the slides going, I don't know if everyone saw in the Town Crier an article on this, and I'm going to I'm not going to steal any thunder, but we'll say that
here we go.
It was mentioned very positively in here, but this very same thing. Well, now slides are up. We'll let her discuss it.
Hey, wonderful. So here we are, some of the pictures on our title slide. And that is Page Mill, and then the little side street that's teeing in is Via Feliz. So next slide. And here's what we touched on briefly, Dr. Daniel Swain's comments about the importance of these types of projects and that he happened to be right there. So next slide. So here's a close-up of the community impact. So these slides are kind of spokes of a wheel, so it may feel slightly disjointed, but by the time we get to the end, you will see where the puzzle pieces have been put together. So in this slide on community impact, you can see where the grass is mowed short, and then there's the white line, and above that is the darkened charred area. So the impact was that it was very close to the roadway, which of course you've heard, you know, Janice and me and other people through the years talk about radiant heat. You have to keep it away from the roadway so the vehicles can safely ingress and egress. And here's the front of one of the sheriff SUVs, and you can see how close it would have been to the roadway if that heat had burned all the way down to the curb instead of remaining up above the short grass. Some of the other impacts were that the Page Mill was closed for quite a while. And, you know, there was, of the structures threatened, there was just one outbuilding that was lost. So that was, you know, due to the amazing collaboration with all the agencies, the fire agencies. We also know that fire can jump the road and increase the spread on the other side of the road. And again, this 15-foot public right-of-way didn't let the embers and sparks get down as far as close. So it makes a wider buffer for the embers that do try to, could be windblown to the other side of the road. Next slide. Here we are again at that intersection. You can see the just overwhelming response that came out to, you know, just jump right on this. Here's the totals of all the different agencies and resources that were deployed. Next slide. Okay, so a little bit of the backstory, the bigger picture. On the right, we have our evacuation route map that was done. There's the vegetation fire, or the target in the middle. The pink parcels are all the homes along the Page Mill route that's within the district. And here's the times of when it happened. And our roadside treatment was, for most of the length of Page Mill, just 15 feet off of the asphalt on either side, because that's what the public right-of-way depth is. Some people did give us ROEs, and we were able to treat, you know, some additional depth in front yards with permission. The other thing I'd like to remind the audience of is this is our portion of Page Mill that's within our district, and this is a maintenance, so we've treated Page Mill before. But you might recall that between, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 agencies, we treated the entire length of Page Mill from 280 to Highway 35 ending last year. And there was another fire, a vegetation fire, at the very top of Page Mill near Highway 35 So that vegetation fire was also been able to be caught because it was a fuel break treatment up there. So this is a really important, well-used, busy roadway, and the regional collaboration to keep it maintained between the interstate and the highway and Highway 35 is, you know, it takes a lot of coordination, and we're super happy to do our part. And now we've seen 2 fires that have been able to really be contained because of the work that's been done in advance. Next slide. This is some drone imagery before and after. The drone measurements say it was 2.77 acres. So you can see on the left beforehand, that was the pre-capture before we did our page mill work. And in the lower left corner, you see the intersection via Felice tucking out right there. And then after, we had it captured again the Friday after, so 2 days after the fire. This is what the charring and the burn scar look like. And then we cut the house out, so there was a little bit around the corner. But for privacy's sake, we always eliminate identifiable features and structures. Next slide. Here we have the initial post on social media that was keeping, you know, everyone informed. Next slide. And again, here's the other angle of the vehicles on the roadway. You can see, you know, how close that would have come down. And you can see where the vegetation was cut as part of our project. And then up on the right, that's what it looked like before the roadside treatment project. You've got a very different height of dried grass, and fortunately no real ladder fuels there, because that would have been a big difference if that dried grass is 18 inches or 22 inches high and then got into the ladder fuels. So next slide. This is a later post that we put together collaboratively, that it did a little more explanation a couple hours, you know, later, so that there was more time to understand the things that happened. And then the picture again shows, this is the Sonahan crew doing part of the mop up, and it shows where our vegetation mitigation met where they put in their scratch line, and the burned charring is above it. Next slide. Second half of the post. Next slide. And here we have our own personal reporter who happened to be on the scene driving through, Commissioner Warren, and his impression of how the whole incident went. Do you have anything you want to add there, Mark? Or
just, you know, the professionalism from Santa Clara County Fire Department was amazing. Can't say enough about how Captain Murray showed me how, you know, he told me that Rescue 74 was the first unit in. It actually went in and first did initial structure protection, and the corresponding units then came in and did the knockdown. But it, you know, they focused on protecting the resident structures. The resources they were able to bring, you know, took this from what could have been a tragedy to a minor event on a Wednesday afternoon. And then just can't say enough about the interagency cooperation. Palo Alto sent several units, responded, including the Palo Alto park rangers showed up and participated in the initial attack. So great interagency coordination.
Great.
okay, next slide. So this gives us a perfect opportunity to remind folks about vegetation, and you've heard so much of it already this evening, to remind folks that defensible space is so important. Trim their dry grass. We're going to have a lot more dry grass this year because of our late rains. We also remind people that best practices on warm, dry days are to have, you know, whenever you get above 90 degrees, or you know that things are really dried out or it's windy, all the types of red flag conditions that you hear of when we put out the red flag warnings, to do that before 10 a.m. so that it, you know, the equipment isn't the source of ignition. And some other recommendations here, have 2 people on hand, water if you can, those types of things. And definitely, if you're able and you have questions, there's lots of us that can help you with questions. The community safety projects, by giving us those ROEs on the evacuation routes so that we can treat more than that 15 feet right along the roadway. Okay, next slide. And again, reiterating all the places that we can support your efforts. If you cleared lots of vegetation and you have piles, we're happy to chip it. Do you know what to do or what to trim? You need a written assessments or written recommendations. We'd love to come out and give you an HIZ assessment. And finally, if you've taking care of things that in between when the chipping cycles are, or you have small amounts that don't really reach the threshold of the monthly chipping program has, please feel free to bring it and drop it off at the drop off. So, how can we help you is basically where we'd like to go, is how can we help you be safer? And that's the end of the report.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Really informative. Jim?
Well, I just wanted to mention that I live essentially across the street from the exact thing, this location of this fire, and I just really kind of eerie to think about what it would have meant in terms of all the homes in our area across Pagement Road. And the question I have, I guess, comes to mind is how often can we visit areas that such as Pagement Road that has been essentially maintained and remaintained over the years? Is once a year enough, or should there be more, or maybe just some observation, some inspection to make sure that an area is remaining safe as we want it to be?
The IHFR team does drive these frequently to keep an eye on things. We also get lots of feedback from you. Jay often brings things to our attention. So we have a 2-year cycle set up. We do drone reports on every 1-year anniversary. They give us vegetation volume. And now we have our flashy fuels program. So even if it doesn't get the full treatment of an evacuation route every year, we can put in a stopgap whenever we notice that, you know, the dry grasses right along the edges of the road have reached a concerning level. We can plug in our flashy fuel treatment right away. We don't have to wait for the next evacuation route maintenance project.
Thank you. That's very good. The other question I have, is there any funds available to help Los Altos Hills, town of Los Altos Hills, do their part in terms of clearing up areas where it's not on the main evacuation route that have similar problems?
We work with the town. We meet with them on a monthly basis, if not more frequently during project times. And we coordinate with when they do their mowing and they do their easements on the pathway treatments. So the town right now does most of its mowing just second quarter. And we stay coordinated through the Public Works Director to stagger our projects. So we're not treating one area too close together and then another area is not getting treatment. So we don't duplicate each other's efforts. But the funding, the direct funding question would be for general manager. I don't know, you know, so we don't give them money, but we definitely coordinate our programs to hit as much of, you know, the towns or the roadways and pathways as possible between our two agencies.
Thank you. Great. Any other? Excellent. Any public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to item 16, personnel. Just a reminder that our organizational structure requires that all these personnel contract items be read publicly, which is different than some other organizations. And tonight we have a fairly large number of them, and I think the general manager will explain why there's particularly a large number tonight, but they do go pretty quickly. I know it can seem a little repetitive and bureaucratic, but I also recognize that to the affected employees, these can be significant updates. And I hope they understand that we don't want this exercise in somewhat officious seeming approval to be mistaken for how proud we are of the entire staff, both current and upcoming. So we will work through this fairly quickly. And let's see, General Logan, if you will please present item 16A, which is about personnel.
Yes, thank you, President Spring, Commission, and staff and public. I will now summarize the personnel item 16C, the proposed First Amendment to the at-will full-time hourly technical data analyst employment agreement was effective date of July 1st, 2025, and include the following changes in compensation.
Jay, sorry,
hang
sorry
on.
to interrupt. I think
Right.
you skipped.
The very beginning of
I
16A,
skipped.
the memorandum
I
report.
did. That's why it seemed okay. Thank you. I will start over. All right. Okay. I will now summarize personnel item 16B, the proposed second amendment to the well.
Back up one more
Keep
paragraph.
going. Oh, okay. Agenda item 16B through 16J are to discuss and consider actions for 9 employment agreements. The proposed amendments to the employment agreements are all included in the District Board of Commissioners agenda material for these items. Government Code Section 45953C3 requires the Commission to orally report a summary of these proposed Commission changes before taking action to adopt that, hereby approving the employment agreements. Key components of the proposed compensation are described in detail in the proposed employment agreements included in the agenda packet. I'd also like to mention that there's a memorandum in the personnel that you can read, and it gives kind of a description. But basically, just to generalize here, what we're doing is the part-time employees, bringing them up to alignment with each other, and then some full-time employees, compensation adjustments, and then we've got 2 new hires, one a regular part-time employee, the other a part-time temporary employee. So that's kind of what comprises these agreements.
Okay, great. Moving on to personnel item 16B.
Yes. Okay. I will now summarize personnel item 16B. The proposed second amendment to the at-will full-time salaried field manager employment agreement has an effective date of July 1st, 2025, and includes the following changes in compensation. Wages sets the annual compensation to $180,128, which is equivalent to a pay rate of $86.60 per hour. Benefits are amended as follows. Vacation leave, vacation hour accrual cap is increased to 240 hours. If the district offers a retirement plan or health benefit plan, the employee will be eligible to enroll in such plan. All other benefits remain unchanged.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, get ready to start firing some motions and seconds at us at a fast clip here. So I will take a motion in a second. Throw in as many as you want, people.
Warren moves for 16B.
Tyson seconds.
Thank you. Any comments? Any public comments? Seeing none, let's do a roll call.
Hey, President Spring.
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji.
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi. Commissioner Tonka.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you.
I will now summarize item 16C, the proposed First Amendment to the at-will full-time hourly technical data analyst employment agreement has an effective date of July 1st, 2025, and includes the following changes to compensation. Wages increased compensation to $70 per hour. Benefits are amended as follows. Vacation leave, accrual cap is increased to 240 hours. If the district offers a retirement plan or health benefit plan, the employee will be eligible to enroll in such plan. All other benefits remain unchanged.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? If not, a motion and a second.
Tonka moves that we approve item 16C.
Warren seconds.
Thank you. Public comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay, President Spring.
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji.
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi. Commissioner Tonka.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0, 1 absent.
Thank you.
I will now summarize personnel item 16D, the proposed second amendment to the at-will full-time hourly general analyst employment agreement has an effective date of July 1st, 2025, and includes the following changes to compensation. Wages increases compensation to $67 an hour. Stipend adds a material stipend of $1,440 per year. Benefits are amended as follows. Vacation leave accrual cap is increased to 240 hours. If the district offers a retirement plan or health benefit plan, the employee will be eligible to enroll in such plans. All other benefits remain unchanged. I recommend approval.
Any motion or second?
Tyson moves D.
Warren seconds.
Thank you. Any public comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay, President Spreen?
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji?
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi? Commissioner Tonka?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-1, 6-0 with one absent.
I will now summarize Personnel Item 16E, the proposed second amendment to the at-will part-time salaried finance and IT manager employment agreement has an effective date of July 1st, 2025, and includes the following changes to compensation. Wages sets the annual compensation at $168,081, which is equivalent to a rate of pay of $115.44 an hour. Hours of work increased to an average of 28 hours per week. Stipend adds a material stipend of $1,800 per year. Benefits are amended as follows. Vacation leave, accrual of 10.5 days per year with a maximum accrual at any one time of 168 hours. If the district offers a retirement plan or health benefit plan, the employee will be eligible to enroll in such plan. All other benefits remain unchanged. I
Thank you.
recommend approval.
Any question? Any motion and second?
Commissioner Kadambi moves to
Thank you.
approve item 16E.
Thank you.
Tonka seconds.
Thank you. Public comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay, President Spreen?
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji?
Gladly, yes.
Okay, Commissioner Kadambi?
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
And thank you, Russ. Yep.
I will now summarize Personnel Item 16F, the proposed third amendment to the at-will part-time hourly technical analyst project manager employment agreement is effective July 1st, 2025. It includes the following changes to compensation. Stipend adds a material stipend of $1,440 per year. Benefits are amended as follows. Holiday leave, 4 hours of paid time for any federal or California holiday. Vacation leave, vacation accrual of 7.5 days per year with a maximum accrual at any one time of 120 hours. If the district offers retirement plan or health benefit plan, the employee will be eligible to enroll in such plan. All other compensation and benefit remains unchanged. I recommend approval.
Thank you. Any motion?
Basiji moves be approved.
Great.
Warren seconds.
Thank you. Public comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay, President Spreen?
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji?
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi?
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 6-0, one absent.
I will now summarize Personnel Item 16G, the proposed Fourth Amendment to the at-will part-time hourly operations project manager employment agreement is effective July 1st, 2025, and includes the following changes to compensation. Stipend adds a material stipend of $1,440 per year. Benefits are amended as follows. Holiday leave, 4 hours of paid time for any federal or California holiday. Vacation leave, vacation accrual of 7.5 days per year with a maximum accrual at any one time of 120 hours. If the district offers a retirement plan or health benefit plan, the employee will be eligible to enroll in such plan. All other compensation and benefits remain unchanged. I recommend approval.
Thank you. A motion?
Tyson moves G.
Warren seconds.
Thank you. Public comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay, President Spreen?
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji?
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi? Commissioner Tonka?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you.
I will now summarize Personnel Item 16H, the proposed Seventh Amendment to the at-will part-time hourly district clerk employment agreement is effective July 1st, 2025, and includes the following changes to compensation. Stipends add a material stipend of $1,440 per year, increases the vehicle stipend to $1,800 per year. Benefits are amended as follows. Holiday leave, 4 hours of paid time for any federal or California holiday. Vacation leave, vacation accrual of 7.5 days per year with a maximum accrual accrual at any one time of 120 hours. If the district offers a retirement plan or health benefit plan, the employee will be eligible to enroll in such plan. All other compensation and benefits remain unchanged. I recommend approval.
Thank you. Motion?
Danke moves to approve.
Kadambi seconds.
Thank you very much. Any public comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay, President Spreen.
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji.
Yes.
Commissioner Katambi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Right, motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you, Corey. And I'm going to pause just a second here to say this next one, by the way, is it breaks the chain, but this is a very key hire. I hope everyone has seen that and both the credentials here for this person. So this is a big deal. I'm really excited about it. So, and it's a big plus for Jay to have filled this. So thank you, Jay. I'll let you proceed.
Okay, thank you so much. I will now summarize Personnel Item 16I. The proposed at-will part-time salaried operations and administrative manager employment agreement and position description are included in the agenda packet. The agreement is effective no later than September 15th, 2025, and includes the following compensation. Wages. Sets an annual compensation at $123,760, which is equivalent to a rate of pay of $119 per hour. Stipends, material stipend of $1,440 per year, vehicle stipend of $1,500 per year. Benefits, the position will receive certain benefits, including vacation accrual of 7.5 days per year with a maximum accrual at any one time of 120 hours. Sick leave accrual of 1 hour earned per 30 hours worked, up to a maximum accrual of 120 hours. If the district offers a retirement plan, health benefit plan, or the employee will be eligible to enroll in such plans. District provides laptop and supportive equipment necessary for performance of the duties. I recommend approval.
Very happy to look for a motion and a second on this one.
Warren moves.
Tyson seconds.
Thank you. Any public comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay, President Spreen.
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji.
Yes.
Commissioner Katambi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you. We look forward eagerly to September. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. I will now summarize Personnel Item 16J. The proposed at-will part-time temporary Community Risk Reduction Specialist 2 employment agreement and position description are included in the agenda packet. The agreement is effective July 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025, and includes the following compensation. Wages, sets the pay rate at $80 per hour. Total compensation for the term of the agreement shall not exceed $49,920. Benefits, this position will receive certain benefits, including sick leave accrual of 1 hour per 30 hours worked, up to a maximum accrual of 80 hours. Accrued paid sick days can be used beginning on the 90th day of employment, with no more than 40 hours used in any 1 year of employment. Uniform allowance of up to $700 for specific items identified in the proposed employment agreement. The proposed employment agreement does not provide material stipends, vehicle stipend, vacation holiday pay, medical benefits, or retirement benefits. District provides a laptop and supportive equipment necessary for performance of duties, and I recommend approval. This is to bolster the HIZ position. So this person will be assigned to HIZs and get those services out to the community. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Entertain a motion.
Warren moves.
Basiji second.
Excellent. Any public comments? Seeing none, let's vote.
Okay, President Spreen.
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji.
Yes.
Commissioner Katambi.
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka. Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0 with one absent.
Thank you, General Manager Logan, for all the employee work. And thank you, by the way, County Council, for helping with all this as well, and everybody.
yes,
So
yes. Yeah.
much appreciated.
And thank you, Commission, for your support. We have not increased positions this year from last year, but we have certainly filled some key positions all year long. So thank you.
Absolutely. Moving on to item 17, Commission member reports. This is an opportunity for commissioners to provide reports on any future agenda topics. Any comments from the Commission? Typically, we don't have any, so just checking. Let's see, any public comment on that? Not expecting any. Thank you. We'll move forward to 17B. This is a notice that the next regular commission meeting is scheduled for July 15th. That won't be that far away. It'll seem very, very soon. In person and hybrid in these very chambers. Any comments from the commission on that schedule? Hope that works for everybody. Any comments from the public on that schedule? Seeing none. We're going to move to item 18, a closed session. The commission will now adjourn to a closed session to consider the general manager employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54857. Before we join the closed session, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, Commissioners, Consultant Scott, and Deputy County Counsel Forbath will now adjourn to closed session. Does anyone need a bathroom break on their way to the to there? Okay, so we will, as soon as everyone's there, we'll start. But moving on to item 19, reconvening to open session. District Clerk Vargas, please note for the record, the time is 10:20 p.m. Please conduct the roll call.
President Spreen,
Here.
Commissioner Basigi,
Here.
Commissioner Kadambi,
Here.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yeah.
Commissioner Tyson,
Here.
Commissioner Warren.
Here.
Okay, and 6 commissioners are present.
Thank you. Deputy County Counsel Forbath, please announce any reportable action from the closed session.
No reportable actions were taken during the closed session portion of the meeting.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 20, adjournment. This concludes the June 24th, 2025 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners. The meeting is adjourned at 10:21 p.m. Please
Okay.
stop the recording.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.